listener production.
Hi, Natarsha Belling with you and welcome to the afternoon edition of The Briefing. Coming up in our deep dive, the federal government's controversial new super tax. While Labor says only the wealthy will be affected, some tax experts say it's a slippery slope and younger Australians should be the most concerned. We're joined by financial expert Scott Phillips, who says the new tax sets a dangerous precedent that could affect all of us. But first, let's check the afternoon headlines this Monday, the 26th of May. A 43-year-old Australian has been arrested in Bali for allegedly trying to smuggle 1.8 kilos of cocaine into Indonesia. Lamar Archie, who is originally from far north Queensland, reportedly received 2 suspicious packages from Thailand. It's alleged the quantity of drugs is enough for Mr. Archie to face decades in prison or the death penalty. Australia's second largest private health hospital group, Healthscope, has gone into receivership, with reports the group is $1.6 billion in debt. Healthscope has at least 37 hospitals across the country, including Sydney's controversial Northern Beaches Hospital. Receivers have been appointed, with the Commonwealth and Westpac banks providing additional funding to allow the hospital to continue operations as normal. And Victoria's Premier Jacinta Allan has fast-tracked the ban on the sale of machetes after a violent brawl in a Melbourne shopping centre over the weekend. Jacinta Allan says Victoria's laws will come into effect this week and they will be the toughest in the country, with possible jail time and fines of more than $47,000.
There will be no exemptions to allow the sale of machetes during this ban period. It's a total ban on all sales everywhere right across Victoria.
Now it's time to get into our deep dive with Scott Phillips on the federal government's new tax on super. It's being seen as a rich tax on super balances of more than $3 million. But it's the devil in the detail that is concerning some financial experts. The super tax would also apply to so-called unrealised gains, which is the growth in the value of an asset or an investment that still hasn't been cashed in yet. The threshold also would not be indexed, meaning more taxpayers will eventually be hit, especially younger Australians. And it's been revealed a number of politicians and government workers will be exempt from the new tax. Financial expert Scott Phillips breaks down all the details on why we should be concerned about this proposed overhaul of our tax system. Scott, thanks so much for joining us. First question to you, why should we all care about this tax on super?
Tash, g'day. The Treasurer hopes we don't. He keeps saying 99.5% of us don't need to pay it. And that's true right now. And those last 2 words why everyone else should care. Because here's the thing, I'm an investor by trade, right? We know that markets go up over time. We know that superannuation balances go up over time. Wages go up over time, and we're having more and more of our salaries put into super. Throw all that together. Some numbers from AMP, the Deputy Chief Economist there, Diana Messina, reckons the average earner in 40 years' time will be captured by this tax. So it's sold as a fat cat tax by the Treasurer, and fair enough, that's the political line. The reality is the average earner will probably have about $3.6 million in super by retirement, according to Diana. And if that's true, that means that average worker is going to be captured by this tax. It's not a fat cat tax, it's an everybody tax if it goes ahead as planned.
There have been a lot of financial experts that have been very concerned about any form of tax on super. The bottom line is all of us agree with the concept of super because that's basically our retirement nest egg and stops us from going on the pension. That is our money, hands off our money. Is that something that you would agree with?
Largely, you know what? I'm going to be a little less extreme than some of those financial experts, actually. I reckon if you've got $3 million in super right now, it's pretty reasonable for you to pay a little bit more in tax than you are currently. And here's why. If you've got $3 million in super, I'm going to do some really rough numbers, Tash. From the 1st of July, $2 million of that is tax-free in retirement. The other $1 million is going to be taxed at 15%. Now, let's say you take income from that whole amount in a given year. The average tax you're going to pay is 5%. Now, think about someone who's a tradie, a nurse, a doctor, a copper, whatever. They're paying 25 or 30% average tax. So yes, superannuation should be tax advantaged because we're saving for our own retirement. We're saving the budget some money. Do I reckon that's enough tax on super? Probably not, honestly. And that's going to make me unpopular with some people, but I'm on here to tell you the truth. But that's different to this current tax that's being planned. So I don't mind people with a lot of money, a lot of super, paying a little bit more tax to contribute to the national project and ease the pressure on someone who's working 40, 50, 60 hours, a couple of kids, a mortgage. If I'm retired and I've got $3 million in the back pocket, I reckon I can probably pay a few quid more in tax. But paying it the way it's planned to be levied, that's what I've got a massive, massive problem with.
So unpack that for us, because it's on unrealised capital gains. And they're very clever in doing this, because a lot of people will say, super's, decades away, I don't need to worry about it. There's a lot of, interesting devil in the detail. This is a really concerning precedent.
Yes. So there's actually three parts to it, Tash, but we kind of talked about the indexation a little bit before. The unrealised gains thing is a real issue. So here's the thing. Let's say you own an investment property in your own name right now. It's worth $1 million, because again, I want to keep my numbers really, really simple. If that goes up 10% in value, it's now worth $1.1 million. You go, great. When I sell that, I'm going to pay some tax, but I don't mind because I'll have sold it. I'll have the money in my hot little hand. I'll pay a little bit of tax. That's the way this is done, right? Same with income, same with dividends or rent or interest in the cash in the bank. Unrealised gains, the equivalent, and this is not going to be levied, at least for now, on your own property, just on super, but let's use the personal example. That $1 million property you own, investment property, goes up $100,000 in value to $1.1 million. If it was taxed on an unrealised gain, the government comes to you at the end of the tax year and says, hey, Tash, you just made a $100,000 profit on that property. I'd like $30,000, please, as that's 30% of that gain. And you say, but I haven't sold the thing yet. I've got no income. Where would I get that $30,000 from? You'd say, well, hang on, can I wait till I sell it and then pay the tax? The government says, no, yeah, good idea, let's do that instead. With unrealised gains being taxed inside super, you'd have to find the $30,000 off the bat, whether or not you earned any income from it. This is really, really, really poor policy, because we've got to pay our taxes, right? But it's got to be a reasonable way to pay that tax, levied on the appropriate asset at the appropriate time when there is an appropriate amount of cash flow. That's just kind of maths 101, right? Saying to someone, you made a paper gain over here, so I need you to hand over cash here. By the way, here's the thing. You can't say to the government, I made an unrealised gain. How about I give you an unrealised tax liability? They want the money up front, but we're not allowed to actually sell it. We haven't got to wait till we sell the asset, right? So you kind of think about those together. It'd be reasonable to say to the government, well, let's just consider it unrealised tax liability. I'll pay it eventually, right? I'll get around to it. I haven't crystallised the tax payment yet, but it's coming. Of course, you'd go to jail. But frankly, that's why it's a really mismatched kind of policy idea. And taxing unrealised gains is just an awful, awful way to start collecting tax. We should be taxing cash flows, not just some paper gain that may or may not eventuate by the time you come to sell the asset.
So in regards to also, there is a school of thought, if people do have over $3 million in their super, a lot of people are going to pull that money out and then invest into property or other, financially savvy areas. There are concerns that then could cause an issue for the already overheated property market. Is that genuine?
Yeah, 100%. Because the assets have got to go somewhere, right? We've got to be careful. It depends who does what. Some people already have property in their super. So if you sell a property in super, you buy another property in your own name, you're trading one for one, there's no big deal here. But if you're someone who's got a lot of super, and say it's an industry fund or a retail fund where they're doing it for you, most of that, vast bulk of that's going to be international shares, Australian shares, a little bit of property, a little bit of cash. If you take all that out and buy one property with it, one investment property with it, you are going to put upward pressure on house prices. So yes, it's absolutely true. Total asset value won't change. $1 million of assets, another $1 million of assets, same. But where the money goes, how it's invested. And here's why it's important too, because if you think about the unrealised bit, that's where property is great for people who are looking for those long-term gains without realising a capital gain and paying the tax on it. So it actually creates the very problem they're trying to avoid. If you go and buy shares and you buy and sell, you'll pay tax all the way through. If you sell your shares, go and buy a property in your own name and then don't sell it, keep it there for 10, 20, 30 years because you don't want to pay tax on an unrealised gain, then you are adding to the investor stock of housing. You're probably putting upward pressure on prices. You're probably competing against a would-be first home buyer. So yeah, there are definite negative consequences and connotations of this policy.
So right now, simplistically, Scott, because a lot of these tax policies aren't, simplistically right now, if I can conclude in asking, why should all of us be concerned about this new move in tax policy on our super?
So first reason, it is going to be backdated apparently to the 1st of July. Now, any retrospective tax, any retrospective law, almost entirely is a terrible, terrible idea. Secondly, it's not indexed. As those things grow over time, as your super balance grows over time, you're not worried about it today. You might not worry about it in 10 or 20 years' time, but in 20, 30 or 40 years' time, it's the young people who should care about this. They are going to get caught by this not being indexed. And the unrealised capital gains is, it's a terrible tax law in 3 different ways. The unrealised gains is just a ridiculous way to levy a tax. By all means, if you make a cash flow, if I earn some money, I pay a portion of that in tax. Because I might possibly earn the money, again, it's like saying, well, the boss is going to pay me at the end of the year, and the tax department say, you've got to pay me tax now. It's absolutely nonsensical. People should pay their tax, but do it when the cash flow is available. They can hive off some of that for the tax bill, not just because an asset has gone up in paper terms. By the way, if it comes back down again, you don't get the money back. All you get is a credit against a future gain. So lots and lots of ways this is a terrible, terrible idea. Let's tax people with big super balances a little bit more. Let's not do it this way.
Scott, thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure. Thanks, Tash.
That was Scott Phillips from The Motley Fool. And that's it for this episode of the afternoon edition of The Briefing. We'd love you to subscribe or follow us on Instagram at The Briefing Podcast. I'm Natarsha Belling. Thanks for your company.